The winter air in Wuj carried a strange kind of silence in the late 1990s. A silence broken only by the metallic rattling of tram tracks, the distant barking of stray dogs somewhere between the gray apartment blocks, and the muffled bass leaking from cheap cassette players carried by teenagers in oversized hoodies and skate shoes bought at flea markets. Back then, nobody would have guessed that the smallest kid in school, the tiny boy standing somewhere near the back of the corridor, barely 135 centimeters tall and weighing little more than 35 kilograms, was building entire universes inside his head. His name was Piotr, though years later some people would know him as DJ Shots Makinny. Others would know him as oOMCMOo. But before the nicknames, before the rhymes, before the dreams of studios, stages, or smoke-filled backstage rooms with rap legends from America, he was simply a skinny Polish kid with a voice too high-pitched for anybody to take seriously. The older boys laughed. You'll never rhyme in English and sound legit. To them, English rap belonged to America, to New York, to Compton, to Queensbridge. Not to some pale kid from Poland riding a skateboard through cracked sidewalks between communist apartment blocks. Especially not a kid whose voice still sounded like he hadn't reached puberty. But they did not understand what was happening inside his imagination. It started with sounds. Always sounds. The Beastie Boys cracked open the first door. Their energy felt rebellious and dangerous, but intelligent at the same time. Then came A Tribe Called Quest. Q-Tip's abstract flow felt almost supernatural to him. The rhythms bent language in ways he had never heard before. Certain lines replayed endlessly in his head until they became part of his nervous system. He did not fully understand America yet, but he understood emotion. He understood rhythm. He understood longing. And somewhere between school notebooks and sleepless nights, he made a decision that sounded insane to everybody around him. He would rap only in English. Not because he rejected Poland, but because English sounded like the language of the universe he wanted to enter. At school, life felt strange and surreal. In his class, there were almost only girls, around 30 of them, and barely any boys. He was tiny, quiet, awkward, almost invisible. Yet invisibility became its own kind of superpower. When nobody notices you, you begin observing everything. And he observed everything. The smell of cigarettes on winter jackets, the graffiti near the staircases, the older skateboarders from the neighborhood, the static hiss of cassette tapes rewinding, the sound of cheap speakers distorting bass lines. Those older skateboarders became his first real tribe. They carried scratched-up boards under their arms and talked about music like it was religion. They introduced him to worlds far beyond Polish television. One day, he heard Redman for the first time. The album was Muddy Waters. He was maybe 8 years old. The voice terrified him. Not because it was evil, but because it sounded inhuman. Like some monster emerging from underground tunnels beneath New York City. His imagination exploded. He began picturing what kind of human being could possibly sound like that. The roughness, the humor, the dirt, the confidence. That tape changed him. Then came Run DMC and Down with the King. Then Cypress Hill and Black Sunday. Especially Insane in the Brain. Especially Illusions. Especially the voice of Be Real floating over the dark, psychedelic production of DJ Muggs. Those records did not feel like entertainment. They felt like transmissions from another dimension. At home, he would close the door to his room, put on headphones, and disappear into those albums completely. Every beat felt cinematic. Every scratch sounded magical. He replayed songs until he knew every breath, every pause, every hidden sound buried inside the production. Then came Midnight Marauders. The cover itself looked alive. Tribal, colorful, mysterious. Phony Rappers became one of his favorite tracks of all time. Oh My God. Award Tour. Electric Relaxation. He studied them obsessively, especially Q-Tip's delivery. There was intelligence hidden inside the looseness, calmness hidden inside technical mastery. And once he heard that style, there was no turning back. Soon afterward came Das EFX and Fushniken's wild flows, cartoonish energy, impossible rhythms. Their voices bounced like pinballs across beats. It felt playful but deadly precise at the same time. Around then, he bought his first vinyl record. He did not even own turntables yet. That didn't matter. Owning the record itself already felt sacred. Later, he got another record, Das EFX, and eventually gave it to his friend DJ Cube as a gift. They began building their own tiny universe from scraps. One of the turntables DJ Cube owned had literally been found near a garbage bin. The other came from somebody they knew. None of the equipment matched properly. Nothing was professional. But to them, it felt like the beginning of something enormous. When he finally got his first mixer, the excitement was so overwhelming he joked later that he nearly pissed himself from happiness. That mixer became a portal. The boys spent afternoons skateboarding through the neighborhood and nights trying to mix records together in cramped rooms full of tangled cables and cigarette smoke. Sometimes they experimented with drum and bass, sometimes instrumental loops, but hip-hop remained the center of gravity. Always hip-hop. Then came Mobb Deep Hell on Earth. Darkness distilled into music. The album felt cold and urban and apocalyptic. Listening to it at night while staring through the window into the Polish winter made him feel connected to something bigger than geography itself. And then there was Snoop Dogg, the Shiznit, G's and Hustlers, The Last Meal. The smoothness of Snoop's voice contrasted with the darkness of Mobb Deep, yet somehow both worlds coexisted perfectly inside his imagination. One side was menace, the other was swagger. He absorbed both. Years later, he would remember another pivotal moment. A counterfeit CD bought at a market stall. On it was Stand by Eminem. The CD itself was fake, but the emotions were real. The song shook him deeply because it mirrored something he himself felt growing up in Poland, the strange loneliness of admiring artists who existed on the other side of the planet, the impossible distance between fan and idol, between observer and participant. At first, he envied Eminem, not because he hated him, but because Eminem became the white rapper who entered that sacred American world first, the one smoking with Dre and Snoop, while millions of kids across Europe dreamed about doing the same, including him. At 18, while staying in Amsterdam, he had the chance to attend one of Eminem's concerts at the arena, but he didn't go. By then, he had heard stories and comments suggesting Eminem held disrespectful views toward Polish people, especially Polish women. Whether exaggerated or misunderstood no longer mattered emotionally. The damage had already happened. His Polish identity was not superficial. It was bone deep. He carried Łódź inside him. The gray blocks, the skateboards, the bootleg cassettes, the analog records, the laughter of older boys telling him he would never make it. So instead of entering the arena that night, he stayed away. And somewhere in that decision, the mythology of American rap cracked open for him. Not destroyed, just humanized. Because by then, he understood something important. The dream was never truly about becoming American. It was about transforming survival into art. And somewhere in Poland, inside a tiny bedroom filled with scratched records, tangled wires, pirate CDs, and impossible dreams, DJ Shots Makinny was already doing exactly that.